Right at 9. Thanks, Martha. Welcome, everybody, to our May NRI Monthly Zoom. Excited to have you here today. We have some wonderful announcements and welcome, and then again, some areas where we're going to have a chance to really focus in on learning more about some programming happening in NRI. So with that, I'm just going to move on. So very similar to our agendas in the past, we'll do some staffing updates, milestones, congratulations. So we have a number of those staff to celebrate today. We'll walk through some administrative updates. Brian isn't on today, so if you have follow-up questions, please do. You can send them to Brian or myself and Martha as well, and just let us know. Some communications updates. So Catherine, we'll hand it over to Catherine in a little bit. And then again, we'll do some welcome and news as well for new staff that are joining us. We're going to have a project spotlight really focusing in on some of the emerging contaminants and specifically PFAS work that's happening. And so I see Brett and AJ on as well. Dan Hawk and Chelsea Pepple are going to be talking a little bit more about that. And so we'll have some more depth of time with them a little bit later. And then we'll follow up with our calendar for reminders. So also do use the chat to ask any questions, share any topic areas that we can cover, and especially in future Zooms, we want to hear from you about that. Okay, well, we'll get started. The first is we want to do some welcomes. We're introducing, and we're happy to have Anna Failing with us. Anna just recently joined WGNHS as the hydrogeologist, and in this position, she's going to be focusing in on groundwater research to help Wisconsin communities. But I'm going to hand it over to Sue to do the more formal welcome, and then we'll just hear a little bit from Anna. Sue, you may be just still connecting, so sorry about that. Well, so Anna, welcome. I know we're excited, and again, I think Sue might just be getting settled in here. So thank you so much, and if you just want to say a couple words about what you're looking forward to coming up in this role.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here working at the survey. I have, a number of projects coming up that I'm looking forward to, but generally speaking, just doing hydrogeology work in an applied setting that's going to inform the work that is done across Wisconsin. Now, that's a very broad answer, but any project that falls into that category, I'm excited for. So I'm glad to be here and see all of you.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna. And we put you up first, and Sue was still, I think her Zoom is misbehaving right now. So sorry about that. Thanks, Sue. I just see the note as soon as I said, we'll just welcome Anna. So sorry about that. I don't know about anybody else, but my Zoom, I think, is updated 3 or 4 times in like a week. So, all right. Well, thanks. And we're real excited to see more and hear more from you, Anna, and welcome.
Thanks, Tricia.
A couple pieces around some temporary and seasonal employees. We're excited to welcome Addie Knoll, a water quality technician with the Lake Superior Reserve, as well as Janai Whitaker, freshwater fellow. With our NRI administrative team, we're excited to have Jasmine Lara, an outreach student assistant, with us as well. And then at Upham Woods, Jacob Malik, a summer custodian, and Amber Olson as well. So welcome to those summer staff as well. Okay, we have a couple announcements, and this is always it's always wonderful to celebrate staff for their careers with us as well. We wanted Pam Narod has been our buildings and ground supervisor at Upham Woods. Pam is retiring. Her last day is going to be May 17th with us. Pam really served such an important role, especially during the time where over COVID. Maintained so much of the buildings and a lot of transitions at Upham, and we're just super grateful to Pam for all her work and welcome and wish her well in her next adventure in retirement. Next up, I'm going to hand it over to Janice to do the celebration, but we're going to be congratulating Brian Adams as well.
Thanks, Tricia. Yeah, Brian joined the previous iteration of the Natural Resources Institute called the Environmental Resources Center in February of 2012. And that was before the instructional design unit even existed. So he's seen us through a lot of transitions, but throughout that all, Brian has been a really steadfast behind the scenes member, and we really will miss him greatly because he could be counted on to keep us going. He was the glue in our unit and on so many projects. So we're sorry to see him leave, but wish him the best as he moves on. So, and his last day is coming up quickly at the end of June. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Janice, and Brian, thank you. We look forward to celebrating with you this last coming couple months here. And again, thank you. Such a career with ERC and Extension, and just all the wonderful ways that you've contributed to our culture as well as our work.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. Thank you.
All right, next up, just a few birthdays and celebrations. We have a number of birthdays this month. Anna James, Jamie Knack, Ian Orland, Allie Parrish, Jenny Seifert, Matt Waldron, and Amy Workman. And happy birthday to everyone. It's a big month. And then work anniversaries. So Kevin Erb, 32 years. Congratulations, Kevin. Janice, 29 years, so closely aligned. Karina Heim, 6 years with the Coastal Training Program in the Lake Superior Reserve. Brian, 7 years, so say congratulations to Brian when you see him next. Amber Mace, 8 years with our evaluation specialist, and then Luciana Ranelli also at the Lake Superior Reserve with 3 years. So yeah, congratulations to those and happy work anniversaries. We also wanted to celebrate and just announce a few other other awards. Dave Hart with the Geological Survey received the Distinguished Service Award from the Wisconsin section of the American Water Resources Association. A huge congratulations to Dave. Nama Taku Forchu with our evaluation unit. She received the 2023 Article of the Year Award from the Journal of International Agricultural and Extension Education, and keep in the lookout for also highlighting a lot of these awards. And you can find a link to them. I guess that's what I was going to say. So, and then Ken Bradbury, with the emeritus with the Geological Survey, received the Fellow Award from the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts and Letters. Very distinguished award. So congratulations as well. Then we have a few shout outs too, just really wonderful work that is always happening. But again, often when we have these big events, we sometimes move on and forget to celebrate just these really important accomplishments. Our evaluation unit really successfully hosted the Sustainable Ag Systems, the SAS program meeting, which is a national program in Madison with the USDA in Madison in April. That was really a wonderful event, and Dean Martin had a chance to do some welcome and opening for that as well. And a huge lift for that evaluation unit. The Geological Survey, many of the staff members presented at the Wisconsin section of the American Water Resources Association annual meetings just this past month too. And then finally, just a huge thank you. Several of you are on here today. Really pleased. We had the Northwoods Extension Forum, which was a celebration of the 175th anniversary with UW-Madison, but really celebrating a lot of the work and connecting to communities in the Northwoods. We had just a number of staff and partners presenting at this meeting. So you can see it here. We had 3 sections, water, forestry, tourism, and recreation. And then we also had a number of posters and table presentations, and just had about 200 of those from counties and towns, associations, nonprofit organizations, others that are strong partners with us, but also future partners join us at the event. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback from that as well. And a huge thank you to those who came up and spent time and connected with the partners during that event. Okay, into the fun stuff, some of the administrative updates. These are just nice reminders for everybody, because sometimes we miss these. They come into our email, and then I don't know if anybody is like me, but you say, I'm going to do that later. well, this is the reminder to do that later, which is, or do it now, I should say, which is cybersecurity training. A couple look for those emails, required training completion. Also some deadlines for personal holiday and vacation carryover, and Brian highlighted what those dates are, just so that you have a chance. And again, just a quick reminder for those. We have our all colleague conference, November 19th to 21st, and thank you to the committee who's been working with us. We're going to meet, in fact, this week again. And Janice is serving as our liaison to the overall program meeting. So we've got some deadlines coming up to have a chance to work together to really make this a special event. A reminder that November 19th is the date that we are going to be meeting as an institute rather than the last day. It's going to be the first day, and it's the second half. So we're just going to be meeting for about 4 hours or so, plus an event that evening where we'll be doing a gathering for more social gathering for our institute on the 19th. So just you'll see more from our planning team, but just a reminder to hold those dates and expect that we'll be meeting together to kick things off. The ATP, there's some links here about what's changing. And so again, thanks Martha for putting those links in here for us. And then again, you can get to these on our slides. And then tip of the month, the records retention, just a reminder of what those guidelines are. So see, you can find that through our guidance for extension employees. And if you wonder, what does that mean for me and my program materials, as well as the information that I collect, take a look at the guidance there and ask, and just, if you have any questions, please let us know. Okay, what I wanted to do quickly again, as we start moving through some of this, is just to share a couple. We have some initiatives that we've been working on, and one we heard a lot from you all and others around the importance of peer mentoring. Now, Extension has not had a peer mentoring or formal program. Institutes have started taking that on, and it's really taken shape in different ways. So for NRI, we're also looking at what opportunities we can do to do some peer mentoring and matching. And Krista Korleski and I have been working on this, looking for additional resources. You'll see some resources in SharePoint as well if you're looking for mentoring resources, so we'll highlight those. But we also had a chance, again, we sent a quick form out to you all to ask for interest in mentoring, and we heard from about close to 30 of you all. I expect there could be more interest, so this was just for those who responded. We wanted to know a little bit about what you're looking for in mentoring or being a mentor. And so most of those who responded were likely to participate. Most wanted something a bit more informal and also a hybrid format, so they could meet with a mentor both in person as well as remote. There's kind of a split here, wanted one-on-one. Some were really open to this idea of a cohort group of mentor, to be mentoring. So that's been interesting to think a little bit more about how we might structure that. And then also those who were interested in being a mentor most were really would like to see some professional development or training, which could take different forms. And so that's another area that we're looking at, is offering some training for those that are interested in being mentors. And you can see what others we're looking for. So we had a number of qualitative responses. Thanks, Krista, for putting this together, of what this mentoring program can provide. Career development, connections, looking for something that's a good fit. So you can see, again, a number of different outcomes that staff, our colleagues, are interested in. So what's up next? Krista and I have been connecting both to Extension as well as some outside other UW resources to provide both for mentors and mentees. So you'll be seeing more coming up in the next couple months. We want to provide both the opportunity for training for mentors as we get this off the ground. And then we're looking for the ways that we can make those connections. So while we talk about informal, we're also there's still some expectations around this relationship that I think are important. We know sort of best practices and mentor-mentee type programs. So we're looking to bring that forward. Those who are coming to our kind of supervisor group, we're going to be talking more about that during that meeting, because we know supervisors are really critical in this kind of helping support these types of programs as well as relationships. And so you'll be hearing again more from us on this, but we wanted to share the feedback that we received from you as well. Krista, did I miss anything?
Oh, you got it all. That was good.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for all your work on this as well. Okay, next up are communication updates. So we're going to try to feature a bit more on our communications because again, people often wonder, what are some ways that we can, one, get support around our communications? How can we get the word out? Who do we connect to? So I'm going to hand it over to Catherine to share a couple pieces and some news as well.
Thanks, Tricia. I've been working closely with Martha. She has a great form that you've been using prior to today to submit information for the staff intranet or the internal newsletter. But we thought, let's make it easier on folks and give them just one place to submit for also the external newsletter, the blog, and the social channels. So instead of separate emails from Carly or Chloe or me or Martha, we're all going to use this one form and it's going to be great. So we've added a new question to the form that asks who is the intended audience. So you'll check external, internal, or both. And then based on that, Martha and I will be able to tell which channels we should be sharing the information on. And then we also added a couple of extra categories to the type of content that you're submitting. So I think blog post or article idea is included on there. I can't remember if we added another new one, but anyway, please know that you don't have to write the article. This is not you signing up for work to do. This is you just letting us know that you have some great information and news to share. And then we will be back in touch with you for more information. Did I miss anything, Martha?
You got it, Catherine.
Thanks.
We'll wait for those pings to hit our inboxes, hopefully.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, we're excited to be able to make sure that we're kind of curating and gathering all the, the kind of stories and information that we can really help elevate and get out there with others in various ways. And so thanks for helping us with that. Sometimes we need to nudge a little bit to get these stories, but at the same time, when we get a chance to see those, we hear a lot of great feedback. So make sure, we kind of need your help to do that. So. Okay, well, Sue, I see you're on too, and I just wanted to transition before we go any farther. I know you wanted to have a chance to welcome Anna, and so sorry about that. I moved forward pretty quickly earlier, so just wanted to hand it over to you.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm so sorry that I was having massive Zoom issues. But yeah, we're really excited to have Anna Failing rejoin the State Geological Survey. So I didn't hear exactly what you shared about Anna's past, but she has a wealth of experience in environmental consulting. She spent time at the Geological Survey and then moved on to the water use section at DNR and gained really valuable experience there. So we're excited to have her back. Anna's got tons of field experience, modeling, groundwater flow modeling expertise, and of course, project management experience too. So she's jumping right in, getting familiar with a couple of groundwater flow models for Columbia County and Dane County. And she's got interests in water use questions in fractured rock environments in north central Wisconsin. And then we're close to hearing some really good news on a couple of grants that Anna will get involved in probably in July. So really pleased to have Anna joining the survey. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Sue. Yeah, thanks again and welcome again, Anna. And you did a much better job for that. I was a little bit too brief and quick, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Sue.
Okay. Next up, I did want to share some news and welcome. We've had a chance to connect to Steve Vavris in the past, including our last NRI meeting, which we had a really wonderful time connecting to hear a little bit more about some of the programming happening through the State Climatology Office. Steve is with us today, and I wasn't going to put you on the spot too much, Steve, but just wanted to welcome you. And also just to reemphasize the news that came out, which is this partnership around the state climatology office, as well as Steve's role as the state climatologist, which extension had been funded from the Rural Partnership Initiative, but really extension is committing long-term resources to this role and this position with extension. So we're really excited to see that commitment. And we happen to be super excited because Steve is joining the NRI team and will be, this position will reside within NRI. Although connecting across all of extension, we just feel really lucky to have Steve as part of the team. So Steve, I don't know if you want to say a couple words about that the partnership itself, but.
Sure. Thank you, Tricia, for that introduction. Very excited about this opportunity working with NRI and Extension as a whole. We're wanting to help in any way we can, providing weather and climate information or interpretation or research that would help you all. And likewise, getting your input and tapping your extensive network and expertise around the state. In looking at the list of all the folks in NRI and Extension in the meeting today, I'm realizing how many connections we already have over the years working with you all. So this should just be a natural way of building on those existing relationships. And please contact me or Bridget Mason, our assistant state climatologist, if you have any questions. I'm really looking forward to collaborating with you over the next many years.
Great, wonderful. Thanks, Steve. And just really pleased that this has moved forward, and we look forward to this continued, like you mentioned, collaboration. So, all right. Well, next up, we are going to shift over to talking a little bit more deeply about some of the work around emerging contaminants. Now, this is a big area, and I know that's not all of the work happening in this, because I see many of you who also work in various spaces around emerging contaminants. But we wanted to focus in on some work that's happening, especially around getting more resources out there and talking to communities around their PFAS experiences. And so we're gonna have a combination of presentations today and discussion. We're first going to be talking with AJ Janinga Dan Hawk, who's a graduate student with Ken Jensko here. I think Ken is on as well. Dan is with the Department of Planning and Landscape Architecture. And then Chelsea Peppel, who is our evaluation specialist with NRI. So Chelsea has really been helping a lot with some of this early work and some of the needs around PFAS. We're then going to shift over to Brett Shaw, who's going to share a bit more about some research that's happening in this area and some projects. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Dan and AJ for some more. And actually, before I do that, Chad, was there anything else we wanted to share about this? Did I?
No, I would just say that, so the work that AJ and Dan are going to share, it's part of one of our Dean's Innovation Grants that were received a year and a half ago. And so they've been doing some really nice work working with Chelsea around just understanding how PFAS, and especially when people find PFAS in their drinking water, how that's been affecting communities and individuals. And so they'll be able to share a little bit of their work. And also, as you mentioned, Tricia, I know some of our survey folks have also been involved in PFAS. And so definitely one of those spaces that there's a lot of room for response from Extension and NRI. And so I'm really glad that we've been able to think about how we can help support communities and individuals from a variety of different perspectives around this issue that continues to just kind of emerge, and ever-changing science and regulations and just information that comes out. So I think, AJ, you're going to start off, and then we'll go to Dan, and then we'll go to Brett for the third part of this.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Perfect. Right, so hello everyone, I'm AJ, I'm the Emerging Contaminants Outreach Specialist, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about an extension resource that we're building to sort of educate people about PFAS in Wisconsin. To do that, I'm just going to give a little bit of a brief background for people who might not be familiar with PFAS or contaminants in general. In my job and my position, I use the Safe Drinking Water Act definition of a contaminant, so physical, chemical, biological, radiological substance out in the environment. Generally, we expect to find some contaminants in the environment. We live in a developed world. Some contaminants are naturally occurring, so we do just sort of expect to see some of them. We focus our energy on a contaminant based on how much potential for harm based on exposure that contaminant has. So an emerging contaminant is a contaminant that's new, it's not well understood, it has a risk to human or environmental health, and because it's new, we don't have a lot of established standards or government regulations for that contaminant. So we don't have a lot of the laws that we would use to sort of keep people safe. PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're not a naturally occurring contaminant. They're man-made. They're highly persistent in the environment, and they're used in the production of a variety of products. Over on the right side of the screen, you can see just sort of a very broad overview of some of the major PFAS, but there are 15,000 plus different types of PFAS at the last count. PFAS are resistant to oil, grease, heat, and water. That's why they're so popular in different products, but they also don't break down because when they're exposed to that stuff, it doesn't do anything to them. We are concerned about PFAS because there's evidence that it increases the risk of thyroid disease, increases the risk of negative reproductive effects in people of childbearing age, increased risk of higher cholesterol levels, risk of decreased effectiveness of vaccines, especially in children, increased risk of lower infant birth weights, and increased risk of some cancers. So PFAS is sort of gaining more attention because of these potentials for harm. PFAS can be found in a lot of places in our environment. There's fire extinguishing foam, industrial processes like chrome plating, and some paints, consumer products, if you have like waterproof mascara, food packaging, although that's being phased out in the next 2 years, non-stick treatments, they have like non-stick pans, non-stick knives, and clothing treatments, so like Gore-Tex or like grease or waterproof clothing. We can get exposed through our drinking water. That is the major route of exposure and the one we're most concerned about. Also dust, so like if your carpets are breaking down and it's very dusty, that could be a source of PFAS. Food, our food gets exposed to PFAS and then we get exposed through our food. Waste sites, all of our garbage that has PFAS in it gets out through our waste, as well as biosolids. So industrial or municipal biosolids that get spread on like farmers' fields, those could contain PFAS, and that could be what PFAS gets out into the environment. So we, as Chad mentioned, got an innovation grant, and that grant identified a need for an interface that shares resources with communities and professionals. So the goal that we developed for creating was to create a tool that could be used both for education and outreach as well as networking. So Dan is going to talk a little bit about the tool that we built.
Yeah, thanks, AJ. So initially when we were brainstorming, we all kind of agreed on using Esri's product, which is a story map. And so why did we want to use a story map? Well, admittedly, they're increasingly popular ways of communicating maps and other complex information in an engaging way with individuals who are accessing the site. And so more specifically for our project, we wanted this tool to include educational materials about PFAS structure and uses, just like AJ was communicating, as well as allowing the users of the site to identify folks in their area that they may want to reach out to, as well as relevant resources. So a lot of our work up to this point has been focusing on highlighting communities and organizations across the state that are working in this area. And the benefit of a story map is they kind of act as a living document. They're quite easy to update as new information arises. And so just a brief summary of our work. It is really centered around these interviews. So we've had 24 interviews up to this point with various audiences such as local health officials, county conservationists, academics, and really shifting towards community representatives. And I'll get into that a bit in a few minutes. And so the purpose of these interviews was to get perspectives from all different sectors, from professionals and impacted communities, to understand where this issue of PFAS and emerging contaminants lands in their worldview. And so we thought we would just pull out a few key quotes that really stuck with us as we were going through this interview process. The first from Chi Tao, who's with Public Health Mass in Dane County, and he spoke to the fact that not only are these contaminants impacting the physical health of communities and households, but there's a real emotional, mental, and financial toll that is placed on those who are impacted. Tom Pearson from UW Stout spoke to the fact that there are so many different avenues to get your information on these topics, from academia, news, different companies. And so for someone who's trying to educate themselves, it can be very hard to navigate all this information that sometimes is conflicting. And so this was something that was emphasized throughout our interviews. And finally, Gavin Dennert with Sea Grant spoke to the work that he has done that he found to be very successful, and that was communicating these impacts to youth audiences and school-age children. And so, as he puts it, reaching the students can really have a ripple effect that goes out further into the community. And so, just very briefly, we kind of centered around 5 main themes from the interviews that we've done so far. Of course, it goes without saying that there's still more research and data collection necessary. As AJ mentioned, there's over 15,000 different types of these chemicals. We're seeing a lot of partnerships across sectors, but there are still some that we've spoken with that feel they're on a bit of an island and would love to form those connections for the first time. Most of the interviewees that we spoke with emphasized that advocacy at the community level is really how the education is going to get into the right hands. It's not about developing and reinventing the wheel as far as informational materials. It's placing it into the hands of those who really need to see these materials. And finally, as Chi mentioned and many others, there is this underlying emotional, mental, and financial stress that folks are facing. And so the story map is almost in its completion of its beta phase. And so that will be available hopefully by the end of the month to share with you all. And so this is just one screen snip from the story map, kind of taking folks on a map tour, highlighting some of the impacted communities and also professionals that we spoke with, noting some of these quotes, and then also summarizing some of the resources that are available to individuals. And just some broad challenges that not only our project team faced, but just generally thinking about this issue, reflecting on the last year or so. There's still, for our project specifically, a need for community perspectives. A lot of communities that we spoke with or tried to speak with may have been a bit leery to grant us an interview. In some cases, we built the trust through other trusted contacts, but hopefully the development of this beta map will increase our legitimacy. And just, of course, there's need for more public education around PFAS. I kind of spoke to that already. And this is kind of already happening, but the testing capabilities and affordability of these tests is really important. And yeah.
All right, thank you, Dan. So as we mentioned before, this is a living document. We're hoping to update it as we continue to learn more about PFAS and as the situation in Wisconsin develops. We're hoping to release our beta version this summer for people to explore and get some feedback on that. And we are actively accepting questions and feedback. So if you have some thoughts, feel free to reach out. There's my contact information. I will be continuing to work on this project for quite a while. So excited to hear what you have to say.
All right, thanks AJ, and thanks Dan for presenting. I think what we'll do is we'll go to Brett first, and then we'll kind of come back. And if you've got some questions either for Brett or AJ or Dan, we can kind of do those at the end of this. But I also just wanted to, as AJ alluded, I mean, she'll continue to work on this project. But I also wanted to just give a special thanks to Dan for his work on this project. So Dan graduated last weekend with a master's in urban and regional planning. Really spent 4 semesters working on extension projects with Ken Jensko. And so, you know, two semesters working on a rural drinking water project and 2 semesters working on this project. And so we really appreciate, you know, Dan bringing a lot of talent and expertise to both of these projects. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and best of luck as you start a new career as a planner with the Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. So appreciate your time with us, Dan.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks, Tricia, Chad, and Ken, and AJ. Thank you very much.
All right, well, now we'll switch over to Brett Shaw, and I will be sharing screens for Brett as he is remote, I believe in California at the moment, so a couple hours earlier than us. But Brett, up to you, and I will pull up your slides here.
Brett, I think you're still on mute.
Thanks. So yeah, I want to share with you a series of studies that we're doing with a grant from Indiana, Illinois Sea Grant that was specifically looking at PFAS that I'm doing with some colleagues, both from NRI, Sea Grant, Wisconsin Eco Latinos, and a number of other partners that I'll go into. So thanks, Chad. So what we wanted to do, and I'll talk about what the whole study looks like at the end, but what I'm talking about here is that one of the things that I've been thinking more about is that when Extension or our partners put information online, one valuable tool to reach people is knowing what they're asking about to begin with, because if you don't have the information that they're looking for, obviously they cannot land on your resources. So this particular grant we looked at was related to PFAS in municipal water supplies. So we could have gone more broad, but that will be a next phase in a grant writing. And so we specifically wanted to look at what questions are Google users asking as it relates to their drinking water, in municipal water supplies. And there's a tool that we use that I'll share a little bit more about in a second called SEM Rush that will tell you, and it's actually would be useful for many, pardon my stuttering, many NRI contexts, because you could just see the power of knowing what people want to know, because again, you can't reach them. And so we wanted to know how could this tool be used to inform the content that we develop? Thanks, Chad. So what this tool does, and there are other tools, but I researched it in advance, is it's a search, it's broadly a search engine optimization tool, but it actually does a lot more. And I'm not going to go into all that now, but I would encourage some of you to check it out. But we wanted to take an initial look at what PFAS keywords have the highest volume traffic. And specifically, you know, people can ask about PFAS in your clothes, PFAS in bubbly water, PFAS in well water, that kind of thing. But again, we were specifically looking at municipal water supplies. And again, what we're really looking at here to inform the outreach of NRI and partners is, what do people want to know? So move forward, Chad. So specifically here, we just submitted a journal article. I started getting interested in this for related to a grant I have from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with some colleagues from Sea Grant, looking at what are people looking for as it relates to aquatic plant management. So if people get an invasive species on their lake, how are they looking up information, and where do they go as a result of those searches, and how are, say, university or science-based agencies using keywords in search engine optimization in ways that are different, say, than commercial companies that might have more of a focus on selling herbicides? And so people are like, well, why Google? Well, these numbers vary a bit, but we know that now most Americans have access to the internet, and the share in North America I've seen range between 84% and 89%. So there are some, AI may change some of this, but the point is Google has a dominant market share of search, both in North America as well as globally. I also want to emphasize one more thing, is that knowing what people want to know is not only helpful for driving more traffic to your web content, but can also inform what you might include in talks or fact sheets or brochures or anything, because again, it's a very valuable glimpse into what people want to know. Thanks, Chad. I just wanted to say one thing too. So I've worked with a lot of you, not all of you, but I do use theory to look at how might people be processing information in different ways. And just at a high level, the elaboration likelihood model basically posits that people process information in a different ways. So let's say you're seeing an Instagram post or a Facebook post. You're usually not looking for information about PFAS or woods or that kind of thing. You might be there and you might follow those sites, but you're usually going to see a cat photo or what your friends are doing or that kind of thing. You're just kind of scrolling. And when people are doing that kind of processing, we call it peripheral processing. So you're more likely to pay attention to design and is the visual engaging, that kind of thing, emotional responses. But when you're doing a search, by definition, you know enough to be asking about it. So what we're thinking here is that there's a different psychology going on between a passive information seeking, say on social media, and more active information seeking that you might be doing, where you might have more scrutiny and be thinking more about it as it relates to a search. And again, these are all matters of degree. It's not dichotomous, but I'd like you to move forward with that idea in mind. So again, someone might just type into the search engine, what is PFAS? And that might suggest that they don't know much about it. They're just trying to learn more about it. But again, they've at least shown some interest, or they wouldn't be entering terms or questions into the search engine. And on SEMrush, we wanted to review topics that have higher volumes of interest, again, to inform content development and learning what people want to know. And then we're also going to use this to help inform web-based content and non-web-based content about what's most likely to get a traffic in the case of web, and interest in the form of other forms of outreach. Thanks. So what this shows here is when you first type words into SEMrush, if you start broad, like just PFAS, forever chemicals, that kind of thing, it's going to go broad. It's not going to drill down into municipal water supplies. But some of the things I just want to show you here is like one of the things we wanted to look at is, we know that in many media stories and whatnot, AJ was saying earlier that PFAS are pretty persistent in the environment, whether they're forever or not is, it sounds like they're not literally forever, but they do last a long time. And so one of the things that we wanted to know, and you can see here that the traffic is very high for PFAS. Forever chemicals actually drops off pretty fast, but you could just see, I just want to show you the kinds of output you receive. I'd also point you to the colored dots in the middle. And one of the things I'd like some of you to think about is that if you are competing in a space that is very competitive, like look at a PFAS, that it is as hard as it gets. So if you're just speaking to general information, so red means it's very competitive. Orange means it's kind of in the middle, and yellow means it's more specific. So partly I'd like you to think through is that when we are crafting content for people, that it's going to be easier to compete on areas that are orange or yellow because there is less competition for those words. So you want to be thinking about those words when you are developing content for NRI. Next slide, please. So for what we did next was now we're going to go deeper into PFAS and water. And you can know that like with PFAS and water, someone could be asking about their private well, or a municipal. So we're still refining the methodology here, but here you can see, what kind of terms show up, like PFAS in water, PFAS chemicals, tap water. And also people put in search terms, but also tons of people put in actual questions. So you can see both the keyword variations and also the questions that people ask. Next one. And so we worked with a series of experts, and actually we talked with AJ, Gavin, Daner, some of the same folks that that they were speaking about in the earlier one. And we asked them, what words, because I'm not a PFAS expert, I'm a communications expert. So what words should we be looking for? And so we based our list of questions and keywords based on talking with experts about what we should use. So you can see here some of the questions that we have. And there's some things you might not think about. Like there was a story that came out in the last year or so about how much PFAS is in sparkling water, bubbly water. So and I mean, looking at these, I just want you to be thinking again about, and we have some of this information, is how do you use this to have some of this content in what we post on the web so that people can find us and not just competing. We're not going to really compete with the EPA probably, unless it's Wisconsin specific or that kind of thing. So next slide, please. So when you look at it at a big picture standpoint, and that is just like a PFAS or forever chemicals, I'll show you a slide about that in just a moment. But here at a broad level, I mean, a lot of people just want to know what is our PFAS. So like, these are people that maybe have heard about it, but like, what is this? You could also see that in psychological theory, whether it's communications or other, common to these is this idea of risk or susceptibility, and also efficacy. What can I do about this? So at a broad level, most people are asking, well, what is this thing? I don't even know what it is. But then you also see too that, how do I filter it? How do I test for it? And what contains PFAS? So these are people that are more curious and more general and less specific. But Chad, if you go to the next slide, I'll show you what you start to see when you start to get deeper. So when you start to be more specific, it's people are still asking what are PFAS, but you start to see a little bit more about risk and efficacy, like how do I deal with this? So we still have, what are PFAS? But then the people also want to know, well, what contains PFAS? Is it, in bubbly water? Is it in my drinking water? And then here, the biggest category is actually, how do I filter or test for PFAS? We're actually working on a paper about this now, and we're going to break out the categories because I think, asking about how do I test for it is actually a pretty different category than how do I filter it? And so in the next iteration of this, but I just wanted to give you like a broad sense of what we're looking at. But now we're starting to drill more specifically into what people are asking about as it relates to drinking water. So next slide. Something else we wanted to look at is like, we know that a lot of people call PFAS forever chemicals. And what this slide is showing is how does the way people ask about forever chemicals and PFAS as it relates to water kind of track with each other? Like, can we focus on the words PFAS versus forever chemicals? Are people using them in similar ways? And the answer looking at this slide is, generally speaking, yes, that they track pretty closely to each other. So moving forward, we're going to be focusing more specifically on, using the words PFAS. And the reason is because it has a lot higher traffic volume than does forever chemicals. So yeah, just 2 more slides and then we can, I'll ask a few questions. So one, I do think that as Institute, we could consider, how might this tool be used to inform woodland management? I mean, like lakes protection, anything you could think of. We also say that looking at the slides I shared with you, the results, which I'm happy to share, is focusing on applied information, like how do you filter in your house? You use reverse osmosis, you use a Brita filter, different kinds of things. And we're going to be digging deeper into the filtering questions and what people want to know. And also, some systems are more expensive than others. So what is the best, most reasonable filtering system? And what are the best brands? There's actually, I don't know if some of you are aware of this. I know some of you probably are, but there's a Water at UW industry partnership meeting coming up that's supposed to look at how industry is thinking about water and matching experts from UW. But we want to learn more about what does industry want and that kind of thing. So last slide. So I just wanted to say too that next up, so I'm working with a couple colleagues like Lynn Van Swal from Communication Arts has been a fantastic partner, working with Gavin Daner. So this is a grant that we got from, again, Indiana Illinois Sea Grant. AJ's been working with us and providing advice. Trisha connected us to some public health, Madison, DNR, Wisconsin Department of Health Services. So we actually had a meeting, I think 2 weeks ago now, where we're showing them what we're learning, what should we be focusing on, because it's really important to us that whatever information we produce is usable. So again, moving forward, we're doing a series of studies. What I just shared with you is kind of a first look at the first one, which is what do people want to know? And we're also kind of focusing, is it about risk? Is it about what can I do about it? So that's self-efficacy. And then also something we're going to look at in our second study is there's a self-efficacy, which is like, how do I filter it out of my water? But there's also collective efficacy. How can we as a society remove some of these things that prevent them from getting into our water systems? So the second study, which we're going to start working on this summer, is a lab-based message test with a survey. So we can look at things like efficacy, hopelessness, collective efficacy, pre-existing threat perceptions, demographics, or do conservatives feel different than liberals, gender, age, that kind of thing. And so that's going to be conducted in a lab, and we're going to be focusing specifically based on feedback from partners and what we've learned from SEM Rush on the variables of risk and efficacy. And then as a follow-up to that, the lab tests are really valuable because you can run a survey and you can look at these things like hopelessness, collective efficacy, that kind of thing. But it's not really how people act in the real world, in the sense that we're sitting you down and someone's incentivizing them based on a Qualtrics panel to pay closer attention. So then the third and final part that I'll be leading is using the information that we learned in studies 1 and 2 to do a real world Facebook message test. And oh yeah, I should mention too that we have a great partner with Wisconsin Eco Latinos. And so we'll be doing these tests both in Spanish and English to determine how people respond to these messages in a real world context. So that's all I have, and might be a good time to ask the first team and myself any questions you might have.
Go ahead, Steve, you got your hand up.
Okay. Brett, this sounds like a really powerful tool. You mentioned that it's subscription based. Could you elaborate on that? The cost? Does the university have an existing subscription, or how does one go about it?
Right now, I do not think the university has an existing subscription. For the aquatic plant management grant that I'm working on, we budgeted in money for it, and we actually have additional money budgeted in for the grant that I was just talking about. And we actually took our first look using money from the first grant, but it's about $300 per month. And that's for an individual license. I think for about $500 per month, you could get a, I haven't looked at the pricing for the last year or so, but there's also a institutional license that, for instance, we could share, and that's more expensive. I want to say it was like $500-600, but you can imagine if you subscribe to it for a year. I'd actually love to help work with Trisha and Chad and some of you to see like how could this be useful. Like I'm looking at and Nardi, for example, like what do people want to, actually, we actually did this already. Like, what do people want to know about agricultural water quality practices? I mean, it could literally be used for anything. So yeah, so in short, it's about $300 to $500 a month, whether you have an individual or an institutional license for the monthly subscription costs.
Yeah.
Katie?
Hey, really interesting and awesome study. I was curious about the social media testing because I've been hearing from my partners about wanting short videos of content, whether on social media or that I'm sharing via email. And so for your testing, are you guys starting to shift towards making like short video clips first, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and testing interactions with those? Are you sticking with images? Kind of what's your thinking there?
That's a super question. So I've done a lot of these different methods. In fact, you've helped me with some of them. And historically, we've done still shots, but we do know that reels are more engaging to people, and moreover, that the algorithms favor reels over still shots. So I think we will explore that, but we haven't determined that because we're just not at that part of the grant. But you raise an important question that I will bring back to the team, and I am leaning towards short videos based on the fact that they're prioritized by the algorithm and people like them more.
Thank you. And I think we're going to wrap up here. We're getting really close to 10, but thank you for the questions. And please do reach out to Brett, to AJ, to Dan, to Chelsea and others if you have more questions too. And we're just excited. Thank you so much, you all, for joining us today, for all the work that's happening in this area. You know, this has been, we first got some funding to support this work from the dean, and we're happy to see just an incredible wealth of knowledge that's been gained just in this short amount of time. So thank you so much. And also a shout out to, I know Samuel and the evaluation team early on that was helping with these grants as well. So thanks, Chad, for leading this. And thank you everybody for joining. We look forward to, Brett, even more opportunities to continue to use this tool into the future. So all right, well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'll put this last slide up, which is just our calendar. Just a few things coming up. Again, a reminder of our June 5th coffee break. You'll hear more from us of what's going to be coming for that. I think we're just finalizing that soon. Our June 19th Zoom, and then again, all the reminder of the all-colleague meetings. So thank you, and happy May to everybody. And we look forward to seeing you, many of you coming up here soon, and have a great month. Thanks.
Thanks.